Today's topic is a pretty interesting one. I actually received some comments talking about, hey Blitz, did you see Square Enix's market value actually took a huge dive after Final Fantasy 16 released and all sorts of things. So I decided to do some research and look into it myself. And the origination of this topic seems to be coming from Bloomberg.com. They made an article talking about how Final Fantasy 16 costed them $2 billion in market value, which is pretty false. But okay, so I had to add this to the video. It actually, while I was recording that, at the very end of it, it has been confirmed that PlayStation will be doing a state of play tomorrow. I'm excited for that. Oh my god. It says officially tune in tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific, which is 5 p.m. Eastern time. There'll be a new state of play focused on indie and third-party titles from around the world. So you guys can look forward to that because I will be streaming that. I'll be going live 3 p.m. Eastern time, usually 2 hours before the event, so we can talk about it as a group, discuss some things, and just overall just generally get hyped before it, because these state of plays, regardless of what they showcase, are pretty damn exciting and hype. Minus the recent like big showcase, which was a little underwhelming for what it was supposed to be, but I have very high hopes for this. I'm really hoping for more information on Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake. That is a game that I absolutely want to see more of. And it doesn't expect to release until spring, I think, early next year. So I think this timing right now would be a perfect opportunity to showcase us more about that. And of course, I do want to see some Final Fantasy VII Rebirth stuff. But, you know, with TGS coming up at the end of the month, actually next week, it's kind of hard to see that they would showcase that here and then TGS. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that. I mean, it would be really exciting, obviously, but stay tuned, subscribe, hit that notification bell, because we're going to go live for that, and whatever they showcase, we'll be covering in its entirety, because it has felt a little bit dry on the channel, I can't lie, but this is a very big boost of confidence and something I'm very excited for, and I hope you guys are too. If you look at the rest of the articles that have been listed, when you type in Square Enix Final Fantasy 16, Bloomberg is of course at the top, but you got places like IGN, GameSpot, Game Rant, Video Game Chronicles, and many more, the typical outlets talking about it and using Final Fantasy 16 as the headliner, the clickbait. But that's not necessarily true. It's a tactic. In my opinion, I think this is pretty bad clickbaiting. And who knows, I'll probably clickbait the title with this video too. But I do want to shed some light on this because there is some truth in these statements. However, it's being misconstrued a lot by a lot of people just unfortunately reading the headlines. And it doesn't help that Bloomberg is actually not accessible unless you log in or behind a paywall. A lot of people don't know you can actually sign in for free, which I did. I signed in with my Twitter to read Bloomberg articles. They just end up showing you it. But we're going to go through this just now. The funny thing to mention is that this was the original title. Bloomberg has changed this, but due to Google metadata, the changes will not be reflected until about 24 hours after the changes. But they started off with the title saying, underwhelming Final Fantasy 16 cost Square Enix $2 billion in market value, which is flat out not true, super clickbaity to hell, and actually disgusting. Because if you click on the article right now, the title actually says Final Fantasy makers 30% plunge, maybe just the beginning. That is absolutely not the the title of this article anymore. And if you scroll around it, like it's literally got nothing of that sort on there. I mean, just the top piece right here. But again, that's going to change in a few hours. IGN followed the same thing, but they don't seem to be changing it. They went with Square Enix loses nearly $2 billion in value since Final Fantasy 16, which is true and not true. It did lose $2 billion in value, but it wasn't because of Final Fantasy 16. They actually even detail as much if you actually go through and you read the article, which I'm sure a lot of people did not. The Bloomberg article straight up says that titles like Marvel's Avengers, Forspoken, DioField Chronicle are examples of poorly thought out games. Honestly, they've left off quite a few. There's Babylon's Fall as well that they could throw in there. There's also Guardians of the Galaxy, which was a good game, marketed a lot, by the way. These games were marketed heavily. If you look back to before any of these titles released, they were at every single major showcase. Definitely does mean that they lost out a lot of money on that, because the return was not good. They even brought up titles like Bravely Default and Echoes of Mana. Nowhere here does it mention Final Fantasy 16. It just reiterates again, the company has shed nearly $2 billion of value since Final Fantasy 16, the latest installment of the global hit series. Obviously, Final Fantasy is a big, massive bread and butter and title for Square Enix. So using that in the headlines for various outlets is going to generate a lot of clicks. And unfortunately, a lot of misinformation, One thing the article does point out, and this is where the truths are really lying within, newly appointed Chief Executive Officer Takashi Kiryu, the 48-year-old Massachusetts Institute of Technology graduate who previously worked at Japan's biggest advertising agency, has said he intends to whittle down the number of smaller titles and decrease outsourcing to focus on big-budget games with higher potential to improve the company's profitability. The studio that made Forspoken, for example, was integrated into Square Enix after that title's underwhelming performance. That is true. Luminous Productions was dissolved, and a lot of those employees, I think majority of them, were brought back into Square Enix to work on various other titles and projects. Another truth over here is a quote from a consultant in Tokyo. He said, Square Enix has problems with their games output, who said too many of the company's games are kind of conventional and don't aspire to become blockbusters. The titles consistently get a 70% rating on Metacritic and are just kind of okay and quite forgettable. Very true as well when talking about those games up above. The company has begun overhauling how it assigns producers. One of the contractors said while game quality management remains a risk, the studio can bank on legacy franchises for the time being. According to MST financial analyst David Gibson, Square Enix has a loyal following of fans for its established titles, and it can keep churning out those across new platforms to maintain sales for a while, which is again, true. Final Fantasy VII can be milked a lot. And actually, right after this, they mentioned the company released a new mobile title, Final Fantasy VII game, last week, but sales fell short of investors' expectations. Square Enix's stock has lost about 30% from its peak this year, and on Wednesday was on track to close at its lowest since May last year. In my eyes, I think this is a flat-out lie. I mean, Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis is right on the cusp of hitting 5 million users within 1 week. It hasn't even been a week. It's gonna be a week tomorrow. Today's Wednesday, right? I don't even know if the sales numbers are even available publicly right now for people to judge this. I think this is just a false statement. If you think about it, right? Since the game has come out, I personally have spent money on the battle pass, the premium battle pass, the 1 week boost pass, as well as the other boost pass. So that's about, I would say, $20 I have invested so far into the game on that aspect alone. And then every day since its release, I have purchased multiple times the $2 every single day bonus. I think it's $2.99 actually. And I also bought the other gear voucher, which is like $1.99, which is super worth it. $1.99 and you can buy another character's skin, which is great because the game gives you one from the jump. And the battle pass itself does have a lot of value. Since I finished the battle pass, I actually got halfway through the battle pass. I got another gear voucher from that. And I spent, I think it was 2,000 gems to complete from level 15 of the battle pass to level 30. And the last 8 rewards of the battle pass gave me back like 8,000 or so gems. So I spent about 2,000 to get back 8,000, which is 6,000 total gems from the point of where I was at personally. So I got a lot of value out of that. And I got another gear voucher from it too. And I'd like to believe that I'm not the only person that has spent money on this game. Now, I'm not saying I'm the worst or I'm at the top of the top that have spent games. I'm pretty sure there are people that are worse than me. But at the very minimum, out of 5 million users, if let's say everybody spent $2 on either the gear voucher or like the premium battle pass, that is an insane amount of profit. Let's say 3 million, maybe 2 million people have done that. That's still quite a lot of money for a week. But again, that data is not available, not that I've seen anywhere. So I don't know where they're reporting on this or what exactly they're talking about here. They do list something else right here. Square Enix drops a Final Fantasy and mobile setback. But this article is from August 6th and is not Final Fantasy Ever Crisis. And the big takeaway from this is that since, remember earlier this year, Square Enix's CEO was replaced with Takashi Kiryu. And he has already put in forth changes that will benefit the company and overall produce better games, bigger blockbusters, while also retaining a higher profit. I believe that they cut a bunch of other smaller titles that had some niche markets, but titles that weren't really hitting 1 million sales total. But you got to keep in mind that those changes that Kiryu has made are not going to be seeing any positive reflections anytime soon. Minimum, I would say, not even 1 year, 2 years minimum until we start to see those positive profits of those changes he made now start to take effect. Now, what future titles do they have on the way? We do know that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is, of course, going to be their biggest bread and butter coming soon. Final Fantasy 16 did release. However, there is more than likely, well, actually, no, Yoshi P confirmed there is a PC version coming out. So we don't know when that's going to be releasing, but I will imagine it will get a significant boost from PC releasing that way. Ever Crisis just came out and will obviously consistently bring in a steady profit income, maybe more, who knows, depending on how they play their pockets with the events. I do have some concerns with Ever Crisis's stamina control. I will make a separate video talking about that because I think that they do need to rework that. The changes they made from the beta to release are good, but they still need to do quite a bit more, and we'll talk about that for sure, because I do want to go in detail. And of course, there are two titles that we've seen, talked about with like leaks from almost 2 years ago with Final Fantasy IX Remake, wherever that is, and Final Fantasy Tactics Remaster, which I don't think those titles will sell like a crazy a lot of amount, but is definitely going to generate some great profit whenever they get announced or whenever they get released. Who knows when that is? I say whenever they get released because everything from those leaks and the Nvidia leaks has accurately been released since then, and those are the only two titles that are being left off the table for now, at least. So yeah, the $2 billion of value being lost since Final Fantasy 16, while it is true, is not necessarily directed towards Final Fantasy 16. That actually is a long-term effect that's finally being viewed off of titles for like Marvel's Avengers, Forspoken, DioField Chronicles, games that have come out that have not met their expectations at all, and not to mention, the studio did end up selling Tomb Raider and other franchises too. So Square Enix is in a tough spot as of right now, but they've made some changes I think that will benefit them in the future. But it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's not like these changes are going to be showing any positive gains overnight. It's going to take some time to really showcase those things, especially since the CEO was changed just a few months ago, earlier this year. But I am glad you guys brought this to my attention. It is a little disappointing that the unfortunate clickbait nature of that title has changed a lot of people's opinions and are unfortunately misinformed because of it. But I do encourage, if you do see articles like this, please take the time to read them thoroughly if you care that much. Don't go around spreading like headlines around, because as you guys can see right there, Bloomberg themselves were embarrassed about their title and they went ahead and they changed it. The rest of the people, because you notice like their article came out 16 hours ago, IGN 5 hours, 3 hours, 3 hours, Video Game Chronicle 9 hours. Like, they went ahead and were just piggybacking off of what Bloomberg reported, talked about, and kind of rearranged their headline, and none of them have changed theirs as of yet. Game Rant. Square Enix may be in serious trouble following Final Fantasy 16 launch. A lot of people might read this and think that Final Fantasy 16 is the cause for it. It's not. Final Fantasy 16 was actually very profitable for them and has generated some good income. Just not enough to make up for the previous titles that came before it that unfortunately lost income. Comicbook.com. Final Fantasy 16 leads to huge loss for Square Enix. Come on, guys. Come on, man. The articles don't even talk about Final Fantasy 16 losing money. They talk about the other ones. So I don't know what to tell you. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you are new. More Final Fantasy and gaming updates are on the way, and you do not want to miss them. My name is BltzZ, and thanks for watching.